recording, you are more than welcome to join, and everything we do will remain live. There won't be anything that will suddenly stop working. We've got later on in the session a recap of where we go next, but today we're going to have a look at the MIEE application process because there's been a few updates from Microsoft since we last met. And also we will then go on and have a look at Minecraft Education Edition and dip our toe into the waters of that. If it's something you haven't tried before, you can have a go after today's session or during today's session. If it's something that you've already had a go at, I'd really like to hear from what you've been up to, and make sure that if you've done something that's been a success, that we can share it with the group and let them know just what you've been doing in the classroom or with colleagues, whichever one that it is. So the focus of today is always about giving you as many ideas as possible to enrich your application, but also for you to take back and practically use in your own profession. We are going to stick to our mantra of making your classroom as accessible as possible, and Minecraft Education Edition is certainly one of those. It's been a massive leveler whenever I've brought it out, whether it's in primary or in secondary. It does naturally create that engaging learning, and I find that as long as I'm prepared to let the pupils or the students lead, that it means that I don't have to do quite so much. I obviously need to understand the direction of travel and the progress in learning, but the route that we take to get there can be driven more by the pupils you're working with. So don't be afraid, because they'll always know a bit more than you. The application itself hasn't changed structurally. It still follows the same format. So it was the Microsoft Education Center. Microsoft have officially retired the Education Center, but if you happen to go onto a web browser and a search engine, you will still find the Education Center. I'll come back to that next. Then you had to create yourself an account and complete a couple of courses. And we had the situation last time when I gave you the redeem code, it didn't work. Well, we've got that sorted, and you'll be able to get a code from today's session for the Minecraft training that we're going to do. And then step 3 was to gather the evidence and make sure that you've got a strong application to submit before July to be considered by Microsoft if you become an MIEE. We have had a situation where Microsoft have changed the platform that they use for Minecraft itself and all of the other wonderful bits of learning that you can get hold of, whether you're looking at OneNote or you're looking at Forms or you're looking at Sway. There were courses that used to live in the Microsoft Education Center. Now Microsoft have updated this and they've now launched what's called the Microsoft Learn Education Center, and I suspect in the future they will drop the mouthful and it will just become Microsoft Learn. That seems to be the way that they're leaning, although we haven't officially had an announcement about that. Once that's completed, in Microsoft Learn, you will be able to find the old content from the Microsoft Education Center once it's all migrated, but also you'll be able to find new courses. And in the future, this is something to flag as a digital leader in the school or the college that you're working in, that you'll be able to then take those courses, and as a leader, you can ask people what accounts they're using, and hopefully it's their school account, although you could use a personal account, but you'll be able to see a list of all the people in your organization that are on Microsoft Learn, and you'll be able to understand just how far they've got, how many qualifications they've got, and so forth. So there'll be far more integration to be able to see what's going on. That has been a gradual process, and that hasn't and I know a few of you contacted me between the sessions saying that the courses haven't been available, account hasn't gone across. I'm assured that by the end of May, should be in a position where theirs is migrated and their account then appears in Learn rather than the old Microsoft Education Center. If you want to, at the moment, you still can go to the Education Center and you can force a manual move of your account, but that is automated and it will happen just in due course. So be patient. If you haven't been moved yet, you will be moved. The other thing that happens is that when your account moves across to Learn, it takes a while for all of your history and qualifications to come across particularly your MIE status. And there seems to be another disconnect here between people not having what they need in the way of their qualifications and achievements that they've already got. And mine have been the same. If I'm in Learn at the moment, I've got absolutely no training history and no qualifications or achievements. And I've been assured that it will come over, and I have seen on various forums it's happening. But don't be distraught. This seems to be a bit of a messier process than we hoped for originally. But one thing that we have got sorted is today, the achievement code that we'll give you will be redeemable in Learn, and it will give you the equivalent of an MIE for giving you the number of points that you require. And then with all of that, that will mean that you can become a qualified MIE, which is one of the base requirements to putting in an application for an MIEE, which is what we're hoping for today. So the applications themselves, we have a phased approach. Phase one is going to be that background about you, understanding your interests, where you are on social media, what you do, how proactive you are within tech education communities. Not included at all. Phase two are those scored questions where you need to get 70% above. Phase three are the long answer questions. And one of the things that was clarified from our previous session to today was the exact dates. So you have to now get your submissions in by July the 7th. It was predicted it would be July the 15th, but it is actually going to be July the 7th. So if you can get yours in before the 1st, there'll be a check through, and if something isn't exactly as it should be, there'll be an opportunity to correct that again to resubmit by July the 7th. So a slight change on the dates there. It's moved forwards by a week from what we originally anticipated it would be, but plan it. You should already have plenty of evidence that you've been gathering from these sessions. So we will help you in a dedicated application session that's yet to happen, where we'll go through in detail each of those phases and we'll look at the exact answers to go in each of the sections. So phase one, as I've already said, it's just about you getting a feel for who you are, what you're going to be like as a member of the MIE community, what you could bring, what you could offer, what you're already doing and achieving either in local schools or your own school, and just understanding who you are as a human being. Section two, or phase two, is really about the CPD you've already completed, and it will be bridged between the MEC, the Microsoft Education Centre, and the new platform, the Microsoft Learn Education Centre. They will be quantitative questions, and they are going to be around the Microsoft Office 365 tools you might have used, or the wider M365 with things like Windows or Minecraft Education Edition, and how they've been incorporated with the pedagogical approach. Then also you will go through and you will have those then marked, and that's an automated process. A human being doesn't look at those sections. It will be simply done by AI, and there will be a number of possible answers that can go in. If it's more of an open question, or if it's a tick of a box, then there'll be a definitive answer as to what's going to happen. Phase three are the ones that we haven't looked at yet in great detail, and we'll spend quite a bit of time going through those when we come to our session on how we build our application. But there'll be about 500 to 2,000 character explanations, which is why we urge you to make those notes, keep those screen grabs so you've got some evidence. But there's also a template to build these so that when you come to do the live application, it will be something you can copy and paste from, because it's easier than trying to type it in live. You are going to have to go into some scenarios of how you've used Microsoft tools, the impact they've had on your own professional practice, how it supported others, outcomes for the school or the institution you're working in. And those will be very clearly read by a human being over on the Microsoft Education team in the UK, and they will play through and they will look at the evidences there and say, yeah, this is clearly someone who's working at MIEE level, or do you know what, we think they need to reapply, and then the reapply window is going to be December. So you need to make sure that you have answered all the questions. So there's some very quick pointers that Microsoft have given us for reasons why people haven't got through. Also, not giving enough documented evidence. That's in phase three rather than phase two or phase one. And also using things at a very basic level. You need to have used something at more of an in-depth level, or a couple of things at an in-depth level. in is show that you've got a proficiency with using that technology and how it's impacting on colleagues and workloads or learning of the pupils and the students you're working with. Other reasons why applications weren't successful is not demonstrating how it's innovated beyond the classroom. So it could be there that you're using forms and you started using forms in lessons for quizzes or for data collection, maybe in a science inquiry, but you introduce the office admin team to it, so they're starting to use that for parental surveys. It can be something as simple and straightforward as that, but you need to show a wider school application. Some things are easier than others for that. And then for anyone that we've got with us, and I think there might be one or two who's a returning MIEE and they're resubmitting their application, it's demonstrating what you've given to the community in the time that you were an MIE previously, and then how to move that forwards for the second term. So we've said the date's changed. It opened on May the 15th for applications. It will close on the 7th of July, which is earlier than we originally perceived it would be, because we thought it was going to be the 15th, but it's not the 15th. It is the 7th of July that you have to have your application in. If you miss round one, there'll be a round two, and that will be approximately 15th of November to 15th of December. Again, those dates need to be thoroughly confirmed, but as a rough guide, that's when there'll be a window that if you don't get MIE this time, it's not the end of the world. The round two is designed specifically for people that didn't get in the summer and just needed to get a little bit more evidence and then can put their application in the autumn term. So there's an opportunity there to do that. Our course, it remains on track, so we'll be with you during that process. In the window of application, you can start putting things in now, but I would urge you, wait until we do the application session, keep building your evidence, because sometimes when if we're in a primary school, we can get our SATs examinations out of the way, and that gives us a bit more flexibility in the curriculum, particularly for using things like Minecraft Education Edition, which is why we're showing it to you today, because we're going into that sort of second summer term. It also might be that you've given some input or some CPD or some training to other colleagues, and they've been going away and using it, and you need to get some evidence back from them. There's lots of reasons why I would say just pause on putting your application in, keep building it in a OneNote or a Word document, gather it up ready, and then you can go ahead and put it into the final application format then. And then by the end of August, the sifting will be done, and there will be an announcement sort of last week of August, Microsoft are intending, where that will be made public, and there'll be a register of everyone that's passed the course, and you will also get an email with your badge link and so forth and your certificate, and that will prove that you've got the MIEE qualification. The MIEE qualification lasts for 12 months, and if you want to then get it again, you reapply. Mine lapsed, and I haven't ever reapplied for it, but I've gone on and qualified for other Microsoft qualifications, such as becoming a trainer and so forth. It's really up to you. If you think you're quite happy being an MIEE, you can reapply for that. You could be an MIEE trainer. You could do all sorts of things. You could be an MIEE fellow in the future. So there are other pathways to take, but for now, let's concentrate on getting you qualified to be an MIEE. So again, a whistle-stop overview of what you've got to do to get in. We will have a dedicated session of about an hour where we'll go through all the questions. We'll look at every single question. We'll give you suggestions for how to answer them, and that will come in the future weeks. But as it currently stands, has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask, whether they unmute or they popped anything in the chat? I'll go across and check. There's nothing in the chat here at the moment. Anything anyone would like to share? Anyone go on ahead and put theirs in anyway? Silence at the moment. Okay. If you want to pick that up again at the end, more than happy to discuss anything at the end of the session as well. So please do think about that and let me know. Okay, moving on from the application and also the changes to the Microsoft Learn Education Center. We are going to focus on the rest of the session primarily about Minecraft Education Edition. As I've said, I will give you one of the new codes to redeem in Microsoft Learn, and that will be available at the end of this session. If you are watching this back as a recording, that code stays live and you can redeem it, and then it will give you the credits that you need. That's only happened in the last day or so, so it's one of the reasons why we haven't posted in our community and our Teams community about it. We wanted to make sure it was working before today's session. So with all of that being the case, we've got some areas to look at today, a bit of background to Minecraft and why you might use it and how it differs in Minecraft Education Edition from Minecraft that your children or the children that you teach might have at home, because there are very different reasons for them. How to get it set up, because there is a bit of technical setup that you need to do or get your IT support to do before you decide to roll this out and use it in the classroom. And then we'll go through placing your first blocks and starting to build in a world. Have a look at where the resources are, like build challenges in various prepared lessons. And we'll touch upon some of the more advanced features such as coding, but we won't labor that too much. We have got some dedicated sessions about Minecraft where we'll look at the coding elements particularly in more depth. And if you want to sign up for those, you can always join those, and they're available at the Turn It On webpage, which is www.turniton.co.uk/events. And you can join up for those. They're more Minecraft focused and in greater depth. The first thing is, people usually ask, well, why on earth do I want to use it? Why do I want to bring another piece of technology in my classroom, particularly Minecraft, when a lot of my pupils are using it at home along with other gaming platforms? What's its place? What's its purpose? And why am I going to put myself in that position? Well, it really is good for developing that open growth mindset. And I've never seen a program develop creativity and those skills of creativity, like bringing Minecraft Education Edition in. It really does also challenge pupils, and it makes them think creatively about solving the problems they come up against. And those creative solutions sometimes have astounded me, particularly from pupils that I've maybe struggled to reach previously, and all of a sudden it's like flicking a switch and they've really become involved. That sticky learning element is something that happens over and over again whenever I've brought Minecraft Education Edition in. And sometimes in some really challenging classes, I've been involved with working in a number of schools, and teachers have said in the class, look, these guys are going to be really tough. They're going to challenge you. The behavior could be an issue. But by bringing this in, often it's meant it's either for learning these reasons where pupils felt they couldn't achieve previously, they've suddenly got a platform to do that, or it's hooked them in and actually the behavior elements diminished because of that. But it is very much about game-based learning and not gamification. And there are 6 core principles that underpin Minecraft. So let's focus and pick up on point number 7 there, which is gamification and game-based learning. All too often in education, I was guilty of this when I was teaching full time. I would often fall into the trap of bringing gamification into my class. And that might be, well, if we get through this, we can have some golden time and you can spend some extra time on the computers or the tablets, or the carrot of, I know you like this particular app, and if we do this piece of English today, you can have 10 minutes on the app before break time. And that gamification is really shallow. It often is a bit like an addiction. That addiction gets fed for a while and then the behavior issue rears up again, or they lose interest. Sometimes the gamification itself becomes something they're not so it's not so sought after, and that they lose interest in it. But if you flip that over and focus on game-based learning is around creating that engaging, immersive environment, and Minecraft is exactly that. It's not just one thing. There are lots of different environments to go and explore, but because it presents problems, you pitch those at different levels. You're obviously not going to, just like you would differentiate learning, you're not going to give people something that's going to floor them and then they're going to completely disengage. You need enough for them to get some success, but starting from the basics, you will get pupils coming with you willingly. And whereas they previously might have struggled with something, because of either the camaraderie in the class or the paired learning, or sometimes they may still prefer to work individually, it does enable them to succeed. So there is a strong sense of collaboration and communication as well when you introduce game-based learning. And game-based learning is using that Minecraft Education Edition across the whole curriculum. It doesn't have to be that you just, again, have it as a treat or something you're going to do. So I tend to start off when I introduce this as a project, but working with staff and colleagues, I'll have an after school session where I might go as a digital leader in my school and say to the leadership team, look, can you give me half an hour in a staff meeting next term? I'd like to show people Minecraft Education Edition, let them have a go, but also talk about how it is truly cross-curricular and it can fit into almost any subject. And you'll get some people who go, yeah, okay then, but it does. So there are 6 core principles that underpin using Minecraft Education Edition. And the first thing is you're going to fail. You're going to fail as a teacher, and you need to accept it. But you also need to accept that the pupils will be your friends and they will end up picking up the slack where you don't know the answer, and harness that, bring that back to what you're doing and allow them to lead the learning in the classroom or support the other pupils. Get a feel for what you want to achieve, understand the basics, but really let them lead with it and let them show what they can do in that environment. You need to be flexible and accept that, yes, you might want them to make a house by the end of the lesson, but there's going to be so many different ways of getting there. Now, whether it's maths or something else, there's often more than one route to getting to the answer, and the journey is the thing that's most important, and that is really part of being in Minecraft Education Edition as well. People become really proud of what they've built, and that construction dynamic is something that keeps people hooked and involved because they want to make what they're doing even better. I even have people say, look, could we have some extra time on this, or could we have a club set up? And sometimes this has led to things like a computing club, and it started off with Minecraft Education Edition. It does develop those systematic thought processes where sometimes people, that doesn't come naturally to them, but it does make you think through things, and you can do that at whichever pace suits you. But you also have experiential learning where you pick up new ideas, or you look to the person next to you, or throw something onto the board at the front and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, I can see how they've done that. I'll have a go at doing that in my world. And it also creates a lot of empathy because people are so proud because of that construction dynamic. They're also broadly respectful of other environments, and I don't tend to get a lot of issue with people destroying or corrupting the environments that others have built. It tends to be that they go, well, I understand that's taken you a long time to make that, and I won't destroy it. With the growth mindset and the letting control, the Minecraft Education team, they found that with the people that were early adopters of Minecraft Education Edition, that you have to, as I've already emphasized, let go of control to some extent. That doesn't mean it's chaos, but if someone come into the classroom, there will be, and we know it's there anyway, but there's going to be even greater differentiation of where people are going, what they're doing. They'll all be focused on the same outcome, whether it's a learning objective and you've put several success criteria up, but they'll all be doing it in their own way. And if you walked around the classroom, maybe you're on a learning walk, and you ask those pupils what they're doing and why they're doing it, they'll understand what they're doing, but they'll all be saying, I'm doing it in a different way. And it's okay to do that. And it's okay to not have them all doing it in a standardized set way. The other thing that you will have is that they'll need to be more central in the learning, and they'll need to be those plenaries where you bring them back together and they do talk about what they're doing, why they're doing it. In the whole philosophy of them enriching each other's learning is even more enhanced and pronounced in using Minecraft Education Edition. There's a lot to take on board, and some people like to, as teachers or educators, get a bit of background. So when I put the slide decks into our team later, there is some further reading there. There's a number of books to go and dive into if you want. All of them are very worthy. I appreciate you're busy and you don't have a lot of time, but I would urge you to go and pick up a few of them, even if you just have a look at a few chapters or snippets that are available online. But it gives you even more depth about game-based learning and the success that it can have for you in education. Before I move into the technical setup, has anybody got any questions about reasons why or philosophies behind, or anyone tried using it and been surprised? Just going to have a look at the chat again, see if there's anything in there. Anyone typing anything? Nothing at the moment. If you haven't tried it yet, no problem. You'll get to see what it's like. It's very straightforward, very non-threatening. You just need to begin at the start and accept that the pupils will race ahead, and you just need to nudge them in the right direction at the beginning of each lesson. Nothing at the moment? Okay, I'll pop back. So technical setup, I've said you're going to want to get somebody in your school who does IT support to do this. So the first thing is you've got to have the correct level of licensing. It doesn't come included with the free level of licensing. A1 licensing is normally the free one you get when you create an Office 365 tenancy or an Office 365 environment for schools. So you can either upgrade the licenses of the different pupils that want to use it to A3, and A3 is paid. There's a small amount to pay each year, and that amount changes. If you want to find out, either talk to the company that sells you your Microsoft licensing. If that's turn it on, you can ask your consultant and they'll go and talk to our procurement team, or you can go and you can purchase Minecraft licenses on their own just to license Minecraft, and you can stay on the free version of Office 365 and do nothing but have that Minecraft license. So there's a couple of routes to getting your licenses, but that's up to you as to which one you use. Once you've got your licensing sorted out, you then need to make sure you've got the correct devices. So a Windows-based device, whether it's a desktop computer or a laptop, is absolutely fine. Whether you are using Windows 10 or new Windows 11, it doesn't matter. Both support Minecraft Education Edition, and you can go ahead and install Minecraft or get your IT support to install it. It's a program that installs, and there'll be a shortcut to click either from the desktop or the start menu, however you set your computers up. It will install on Apple devices, so I often get asked this, particularly for teachers that might have an Apple Mac or a MacBook or an iMac at home. You can install that too, and again, that's not an issue. It will be available, is available on iPads, so iPad OS, the iTunes store's got it, and also it came to Chrome OS as well. Doesn't work on Linux if you are running, it's another operating system, and it won't work in the web browser. This is one that does have to be installed as a dedicated program, and it's worth making sure that it is installed before you get all the computers out and go to do a lesson and realize the program isn't available. You need to make sure that everyone's updated to the same version. If people are on different versions of Minecraft Education Edition, that's what that symbol means, MEE, you'll have problems with collaboration or working together. So you can work in isolation individually, or you can collaborate, but it's impossible to collaborate if you don't have the same version. So the version number I'll show you when we go across to look at it, but the version number's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, so you can always see what version is running. The next thing is you all need to be on the same Wi-Fi network. So I know as Wi-Fi gets better, schools have increasing number of Wi-Fi networks. So there might be a staff one, which all the staff and pupil devices are on. There might be a guest one, or it might be a bring your own device network. Whichever computers you use, they all need to be on the same one. So it might be the internal school network. If you've got a couple that end up on the guest network, they won't be able to join and do any collaborative work. So everyone has to be on the same wireless network, and usually that's not an issue. They also need to be in the same channel, and I'll show you channels as well to communicate. And then there needs to be certain ports open to the internet. There's a long list of ports, but really important ones are listed there for the Minecraft multiplayer. Also, if you want to do any code building, the ports are there. And then you've got classroom mode, which is what allows you to work together. So there's a long list of those. It's not just those few there. Give them to your IT support and ask them to check that those ports are open. And then you'll be good to go as far as using it in your classroom. It's worth doing your homework, making sure all of that is happening, and trialing it with maybe a test pupil account where you have yourself on your teacher laptop or teacher desktop and a couple of dummy pupils logged in on some laptops, and then try it in the classroom before you launch this to a class. I've had and seen some unfortunate scenarios where people haven't done their homework and they've gone to use it with a class of 30 pupils, and all of a sudden it doesn't play ball. And as we all know from anything, once you've got 30 pupils off task and starting to lose interest, it becomes a nightmare. So just make sure that everything is organized before you go ahead and introduce this. Also, it destroys the confidence of the staff that you're trying to bring into this technology. So for everyone concerned, make sure it is set up correctly. And then you're ready to start placing your first blocks, which is what we'll do next. And I'll go through and show you where my worlds are, lessons and build challenges and biomes and so forth. As I said, we'll give you a slight taste of what Code Builder is for coding, but the other elements of Minecraft, putting blocks in, is completely transferable across all subjects, so you don't need to worry about that. And as far as organizing your projects in Minecraft Education Edition, they save locally on the device or locally to the user. At the moment, your worlds don't save back to the cloud. I really wish they could. People have been asking Microsoft to crack that for years, but we'll look at how you get your worlds out and how they are saved and what's called versioning of those worlds as well in today's session. Anybody have any questions around that as I swap over and move over to Minecraft itself? If you aren't sure if you've got Minecraft included in your licensing, after you've got it installed, when you go to Minecraft and you go to log in, it will ask you for your email address and your password for Office 365. It will either let you log in and you just put it in as if you were logging into office.com, for instance, in a web browser. But if you get in, it will let you into a screen that looks very similar to this. It does change, so the background there and the arrow code box in the middle does get updated depending on which version you're on or what content's been released at a time, but you'll get a familiar platform that looks a bit like this. The version number is down there in the bottom right hand corner, and that's what I said about checking everybody in the class is on the same version. But if a new version comes out, is making sure that the IT support company pushes that out and that you're always getting the latest version, because the latest version doesn't just ensure compatibility, it also ensures that you are going to be able to get to all those new resources. In here, the first thing you'll need to make sure is that your settings are for how you like them. We could spend a whole session on settings, but some really key things. Accessibility at the top, you can have speech read, you can have text to speech. You can also get rid of things like camera shake. So if that's a distraction or you've got visually impaired pupils and that destroys how they are seeing what's going on. You can do things as well, such as attach controllers for Xbox. If you've got touch devices, you can use touchscreen. Today, I'm going to use a mouse and a keyboard, but you don't have to use mouse and keyboard. So if you put this on a tablet, it can be entirely touch-based. Your profile itself, you can have it so you've got you can move in and out of different accounts. You can also change the video. It is quite intensive in the way that it renders. In other words, the way it uses the graphics card. So you can do things such as drop down the quality of the image you've got in front of you and make it less of an ordeal on the processor and the resources of the computer. Storage itself, you decide where you're going to store your worlds. So in there, I can see that I've got 9 worlds and they take up 75 megabytes on the computer I'm using. But also thinking of EAL, as long as you've got your people signed in and they get to the language and settings, they could change this into any other language, and then all of the wording from there on in is in the language that they need. So it does suit if you've got a mixture of language needs in your classroom, the pupils in front of you. So that's settings. That's also where you can switch accounts. And then over here on the right will be your avatar. And you can see I've chosen my outfit. Probably best not to let pupils spend too long on that, but you can choose your avatar and what they wear down here. And if you let them, their pupils will spend ages in here faffing around and changing that. So it's best to just put a timer up on the board or something and say, look, you got 2 minutes, make choices, and then you're going to go with what you've got. The Hour of Code itself is part of the Hour of Code initiative. There'll be new Hour of Code tasks that will happen all the time. And you can see that they are signified up there with the new tab. I think that's just unshared. Sorry, let me go back and reshare that. There we go. And you can take those and you can use them as projects. It's best to play around with any of these Microsoft projects or Minecraft Microsoft projects before you bring them live in the classroom. Some of them are really in depth and some of them are straightforwards. They can be around all sorts of things. So there's one there about the environment, looking at renewable energy. My pupils love the climate change one. We put that into bigger project work and it really landed well. It's tied in with the Met Office. So the Met Office have put in things like wind speeds and meteorological speeds. So you can take as much of that data as you want. It could just be about where is the best place for a wind turbine. Is it going to be the bottom of a valley or the top of a valley? And you can experiment that way. So make it as complex or as simplistic as you need. So that's Hour of Code. The rest of the resources are going to be in play. When you come into play, if you've got a world that you've already saved, you are going to import it here and it will look locally on your computer and you can bring it in. If you're going to join a world and you're going to be collaborative, you can do it there, and we'll also show you about hosting a world to join it. It generates a channel code, or you can go ahead and create a new world, and that will take you into something called blocks of grass. All of your worlds are in your My Worlds library, so you can see the worlds that I've used previously. But if I go back, you've also got a library of worlds in here. Now, there's a lot to experiment with, and I'd say just go across and spend a bit of time. There are educator resources. If you press that, it will take you to a website, and it will open up where you've got things like achievements for yourself, training you can do to certify yourself as a Minecraft trainer. It also gives you free downloads and resources. There's lots of different bits and pieces in there, so it's really worth having a look at what's available to you. But subject kits, and when I said it's truly across the curriculum, there's also not a need to go preparing a lot of resources with Minecraft education. So if it was science and you want to go in, you're doing chemistry or biology, you might want to go into biology, and what you're going to do is make the model of a cell. So you could say, look, I'm going to create an animal cell tour to go in. It will give you a lesson plan. It will talk you through the description of what the objectives are. Now, this is organized by American educational phases, but you'll get a feel for it. It tends to be about 1 or 2 year groups out to the UK. Gives you an idea of how difficult it is. So that would be brilliant for introducing a class, beginner level, but for secondary, not primary. So make sure you also not look just at difficulty, but at the age range there. And if you want to go ahead, you press create world, and then it will spawn that world and you can go in. So it's not just for science, it's for all of the subjects across the curriculum, whether it's digital citizenship, your art and design. There's lots of different things that you can get stuck into. And if you are going to do a staff training session as the digital ambassador and the MIEE in waiting in the school, that's usually a good place to introduce people to and have a few of those sorted out in advance that you know are going to appeal to the staff that you're working with, but show them that it's not another thing to have to spend hours mastering. There are resources there that you can go and pick up and use. In addition to Hour of Code, and it will overlap a little bit, you can get monthly build challenges. So one that I'll show you later is there's one there around area and volume for maths. So you might be doing it on paper, and you just decide to use Minecraft Education Edition for one lesson to enhance what you're doing. There might be other things like creating environments to entice bees in and pollination. There's a lot of different options in here, and you can take as much or as little as you want out of those monthly build challenges, and they do rotate. If you're a bit unsure and you want to teach yourself, as well as having courses in the Microsoft Learn Education Center, you can go into how to play, and there's lots of tutorials in here as well. So there's a touch tutorial in the middle, keyboard and mouse tutorial over there, and there's additional tutorials there. What they do, they were restructured in the last few months. They're much better than they used to be. You used to have to pay them through in a linear way. They were a bit laborious, but now they are much more enticing to teach you, or you could use it to teach pupils if you just want to have some time to walk around, see how they're engaging with it. Then down the bottom here, you've got starter worlds. There are build plates, not too many of those, but they are empty worlds that you can start from. So you could have a digital classroom, you've got plots there to populate. Blocks of grass we'll use later. It's a really popular one to do. But you've also got biomes where you can go for a particular biome around the world, whether it's ice, deserts, volcanic, underwater, but you can just call up those biomes so you don't waste that valuable learning time trying to create an environment, and pupils are dropped straight into it and they can get on with the objective that you're setting them or the outcome that you want to achieve for the lesson. So it's a bit of a tour about how to go around Minecraft Education Edition, but I'm going to duck back over to Worlds. So area and volume was one of the lessons that I showed you. If I went into area and volume, I can either play it, and that's great, that will drop me straight in, or I can host it. Earlier you saw about join codes, so you can click on host, it will load the world, and when I'm hosting, as long as people are in the same wireless network and also the same version, they will be able to come in here and work with me together, or I can just be in here on my own. So this is a nice little pre-prepared resource. It's all around estimating, well, not well, you could estimate, but you can also go and see it. So if you use the keyboard's commands that I've got on screen for you on the left there, you can hide those controls or they can be on screen. So once you've learned them, get rid of them. If you need them there, then press H again and they will bring them back. But it's just W, A, and S and D. So you've got blackboards here. What you can do is you can go up above and you go, okay, so this is so many blocks long by so many blocks wide. What I could do is then come along the front here and I could go to my chalkboard and I could write on the chalkboard what my answer is, put my name against it, and then other pupils in the class could come and see if they agree with me or disagree, or we could pop it on the board, or you could give each pupil, if you wanted to use this as a check of progress, could go in and just do one, or you could have those that were less secure just come over and do area, and then the other ones behind could go and do volume over there, or they could create their own. And also the formula is up there above in the sky to help remind them at the same time. So it's an example of a pre-made option. Those are quick and easy to pick up. And you could say, look, I've got mine there. Well, what happens if I go over here and this is my pre-made resource, but I'd like you to make your own. So on the end, there's a space there, or you can pick up the materials by going in, and there's a raft of equipment. I'll show you in a bit more detail next how to get to that equipment. But you could say, look, extend the platform and start to put your own versions in and create challenges for the other pupils in the class. As we are hosting, there's a join code. So the join code here is pickaxe, booking quill, fish, fish. All of the other pupils in the class on the front screen where we were going into our worlds put in that join code, and then they would join me in here and I would see their avatars and their name would go above their avatars and they'd all be wandering around with me. Now, I haven't got anybody else on the same wireless network as me today, but it also confirms to me some technical details down here like IP address. So that's the number on the wireless that your computer's on, and also the port. And what you can do is you could change that join code if people aren't getting in. You can also send a share link, or you can stop hosting if you want to make that world private to you. And then over here, you can get some more instructions on how to play. You can also save and exit at the same time. And then once you've saved and exit, it will take you back out and it will drop you back into where you came into my worlds. If you went back down, then I've got my area and volume there. If I want to get it out at the end of the lesson, I go to manage, click export. And one of the things as we're teaching the coding curriculum and the computing curriculum is that you want version numbers. So each time you export it, it will have the name of such as green building mole hole 2, but then put the date or put version 1, version 2, version 3. So if a pupil absolutely messes up their world in one lesson, they haven't lost 3 or 4 lessons worth of work. They can go back to the previous version, they can bring it back in, and that's really important. Get them to then save that in their area on the server. If they've got a home drive, or if you already moved into the cloud, you can save that in their OneDrive, and they can maybe then share that with each other in OneDrive so they can go into each other's worlds. But the easiest way to get people together is to collaborate. Any questions on the organization before we go in and we just play one of these worlds? I'm going to pop back over and check in the chat. Nope. Anyone who'd like to give me a show of hands if they've already tried using Minecraft? Does anyone pop your hand up as a reaction if you have tried using it, or is it a clear no from everyone? You've not tried it yet until you've seen today. No, no hands. Okay, so you're all completely useless. So if that's the case, I'm going to go and grab in my library a starter world and build plate. One that you want to start with is probably blocks of grass. So I'm going to create that world and it will go in. It's just going to call it blocks of grass. And it is exactly that. It's a world of endless grass with some lovely friendly animals in it. But there isn't in Minecraft Education Edition anything that's threat. There isn't anything of violence, and there also isn't a limit on the equipment you've got as well. So you can see the controls on the side there. If you want to get to your inventory to start building something, you just press E, and up will come your inventory. Now you've got various options to sift through it. You can use the different categories, and that will take you through the resources you've got to hand. Or if you want to find something, you can use a search box. If you hover over whatever it is, it will tell you. And then down the bottom, you can equip yourself with what's in the inventory. And you can decide what you're going to do when you lay your first blocks. What do you want to build your house out of? And one of the first things that I normally do is I set a challenge to say, look, build a house. So I'm going to pick up, we'll have some doors. I might have a tinted glass. I'm going to create a glass wall. And then I may also have, let's have some chiseled stone. And to move it up a bit, I'll have some sandstone. And then also might have, let's see if I can find, I can't see easy. So I'm going to pick up something called a lever. I have one of those and I'll put that in there. Now, I also might want a camera. I'll show you what the camera does in a little bit. And also I might have something called booking quill. These are good starter things to have. And I'll pop those in. I've still got 2 spaces, so if I decide to come back and have that. If I want to throw something out, I just pick it up, throw it away, let it go out there, and it will give me an empty slot, or I can drop it back in. Got everything I want there, so I can press escape or press the cross, and it will come back out, and then all of a sudden, I've got my equipment at the bottom. To change between the equipment, you use the number keys, so all I'm doing is pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then whatever I've chosen, it will then bring it up and show it as what I'm equipped with in my hand. Moving around the world, as I said, is just W forwards, S backwards, A left, D right. And then to go up above, you hit the space key, or you can double tap it if you want to then come down and you'll drop back to the ground. Then you can start using either left or right on the mouse or left or right on the trackpad and place your blocks. And this is where you would normally start, just teaching very basic things. So you might want to get rid of the bits that you had underneath, and I want to replace that foundation level with something more sturdy. So I'm now equipped, and you have to get within range. You might be able to see it, but there's a faint black line, which means that I can put my block in there. So if I now right click, it starts to put in the blocks in the space that I've made. So I think I might just create that one there. Now, that's all well and good. Now I've got my sturdy foundation. I want to put on some of the stone blocks. So I'm going to swap to stone. And then I'm going to make another wall moving backwards, and I might need to just move backwards a little bit if I'm too close. I'm going to put another layer on top, so let's just come out around there, and away it goes. If I decide, look, I've managed to miss something, or it's not quite where I want, I can always smash it up by left clicking, and I can rebuild and right clicking. You carry on until you got yourself a house. It can take a little while to build a whole one, so this is why usually when you start a lesson, you just start off with something like this. If you've got some people that are really, really advanced to this, they might instantly jump to the coding method, but encourage them during the initial lesson just to go ahead and try this. So I'm going to stop there. What I'm going to do now is swap my inventory and pick up a door. So I might go to number 3. There's my door, and I think I'll have a door there. So I'm popping a door in, and I like my doors so much, I'm going to scroll across and I'm going to put another door on that side. But I do want to go back, and I'm going to put in another bit of stone there. And I might just slide across here and put in some more stone there and more stone there. So it looks a bit like that. Now I could walk up if I wanted to, and the doors don't open automatically. I bang against them. So I need to click my door. If I right click, it opens and shuts the door. But what I could do is I could use some of the other features in there, and I could have a lever as a handle to open the door. So if I go to my lever and I pop my lever on the wall, now when I pull my lever, it will control the door. And that lever will open and close it as I want, and it will then change things, and then you might even bash some of your wall out. Now I've decided, now my door's open, I want to go in, I want a bit more of a view, so I don't like having all stone all the way around, so I'm going to go across to my tinted glass. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to smash out there, and I'm going to put a tinted wall in there. I think I'm going to have a double tinted wall there, and just to make it symmetrical, I am going to have a tinted wall. If I come around this side, I'm going to get rid of those two. I'll put some in there and there. So it starts to look a bit more like a house. Now, if I wanted to go up, I could go above and I could carry on building. I realize I've left the block out there, so I'm going to put a block in there. And then I could start to build a diagonal roof or however I want to make it, or I could extend my house because I can bash down those walls as easily as anything else. Now, one of the things as a teacher is it's quite hard to keep track of what's going on with all of them doing these things in the classroom around them, which is where the camera can come in useful. So the camera is something you can either use to take shots. So you could click right and it will just take a snap, a bit like a Polaroid, and that will go into my library. Or I could, let's say, walk forwards a bit, turn around. I could drop my camera in front of my building. Here comes a cow. So I could put my camera here. And what then I could do is click the camera and the camera will start to fizz, a bit like an old style camera, and it will pop and it will take a picture of me stood in front of my building. So this is great for evidencing progress. And then I could go across to Book and Quill. And with Book and Quill, if I click the Book and Quill, it opens up a book. And it is exactly what I said. It's a paper book, and in there you can document evidence of your progress that you've made either within a lesson or across time. So I go down to my page, I press my page, and this might be lesson 1. And in lesson 1, I built my house structure. Now, what I could do over here, if I edit this, I want to add a photo. Now, here are the photos that I've taken. That was the one of me facing my house, and this is one of me very proudly stood in front of my house. So it might be over there. Now, as a teacher, what I could do is I could come in and see exactly what the pupil has recorded. At the end of a project, you can export this as a PDF as well. So you've got evidence of learning, and they could take that across and share that with you in Teams, so they can be independent in that, and that's where you sign it. Over here, from the accessibility lessons, accessibility session we had, you can press immersive reader, and immersive reader is here inside of Minecraft. And all of a sudden, what I've written in my Book in Quill, I've got an immersive reader. So I've also got those accessibility tools to support learning needs in my class if it's not something that's easily read. But I can come back out and I can flick over to the next page, and then I'm over into the next page of my book. So it's up to you about where you want to go with things. It's up to you about where you want to move things. I want to move that picture back, I can move it back to that page, or I can flick over and go to page 3 and 4 and then write something else. And when I've finished, I just come out of my Book in Quill, and I might select, I want to go back to that sort of block and do something completely different. So I've got a pig about to go in my house. So that is what's called placing blocks, and it's normally the place to begin yourself when you're learning this, and it would be in those tutorials, but it's also a good place to start with pupils just to suss out where they all are, usually miles ahead of where you think they are. But also, if you start to see someone who's a front runner and has got clearly loads of skills, it's a good opportunity to start thinking about how you're going to weave that expertise back into supporting the learning of everybody else in the class as well. Has anybody got any questions about that before I show you Code Builder? And I won't go into Code Builder in a large way. We normally cover that in more depth in a dedicated training session. No? Okay. I will quickly show you Code Builder, and then we'll go back over and have a look at the rest of the session for today. So outside of here, what you can do is you can give chat commands. Now, chat commands you can get to by pressing T. You can have various chat commands. It could be a command that brings all of the people that are in a particular place back to a singular set of coordinates. You could have chat commands that automate processes. Now, one of the reasons that you use coding is to avoid having to do the laborious job of building your own house and spending ages putting it together like that. You can get an agent to do that for you. So if you ignore the chicken and the chicks there, we will go into Code Builder by pressing C. Now, this is great for the coding curriculum, but what you can choose is to either use block-based coding or script-based coding. But you can go in and you can create a mod method. And in here, this looks very similar to other block-based coding methods, but you've got all of your different blocks on the sides. So you've got events blocks. So you might say, look, when I start, or you might want it when you broadcast a message. or it might be that you wanted to have a certain control and so forth. But you've got a lot of different options in here of ways or events of building a block, or when you can have layers. So you can start to build what you've been doing, and it can be very, very, very simple. That you might want to have, let's say, a repeat, and they're going to say when you start, you want something to repeat 10 times. And you might say, look, we are going to go into events and we're going to have a, let's go into there. It might be that we say, look, if it's true or it's false, or we want something to happen forever or repeat a certain number of times, and it's very, very similar to Scratch or those other programs, and you got events to start you off up here, you can drop in the blocks that you want to have. So you could have world blocks. So you want to say you want something to repeat, but you want it to be near the nearest player, and you want to go on to affinity, so water to infinity, or you could have utilities. So you could say build using stone, and you want that to happen at a certain number of coordinates. Now, coordinates aren't something we've gone into in a large way today, but the whole world has coordinates. So it might be you want it to 5 on X. Y is how deep it is. So you might want that on -1, which means it's 1 block deep in the ground. And you might want that as 5 there, so that when you start or run the algorithm, it will do exactly that, and it will get your avatar to make it. Or you can have it, instead of being on start, you can have a chat command that you type in, and chat command will kick it off. Today, we aren't laboring that too much, and I won't even bother saving that. But you can then go across and you can have this in different worlds. You can have it in different coding languages. So you can code in Python, you can code in Java, or you can code in Tinker, which is the block-based coding I've just shown you there. Most primary schools in upper Key Stage 2 use the Tinker method, but if you've got a class or a code club after school, or you're working in secondary, then you're probably going to start to go into script-based coding. So as far as today is concerned, there's my agent now right under my feet. If I go back, because I've given my agent some coding to do, that's where I would go to chat command, and I put in my chat command. So if I'd given that instead of on start, it might be code. You say, well, I want my agent to go, and what it would do is it would build those walls for you for the parameters or the coordinates that you've determined, and then you could get on and do other things or work with pupils. And there's lots of different ways of creating that world. So I'm going to save and exit that a minute and just show you an example of something you could create. So if I went back to my worlds, there's huge amount of scope. You have got in there predetermined worlds that are not land-based, so you can go to the International Space Station. You could build a new part of the International Space Station on one of those plinths or those blank areas that you could see that were right next to biomes. What I did here with a group of people is we took what should be a world where you're concentrating on building the plinths out here, and you get a center of a community, you get roads and pathways. But if I go up in the air, you've got these blocks where people can build houses, and I've been building a bit of wall there, but I ignored all that entirely. And what I took was the range here, and we were doing a bridge building project, and we looked at the shapes of bridge building. And then what we did over the course of a couple of lessons, we built a bridge that mimicked Iron Bridge. And then we made sure that we had the structure correct. We used scaffolding. And then once we'd got that sorted, we used the whiteboards. And with the whiteboards, we then gave some pointers to people that were coming. We said, welcome to our bridge. Please be respectful of it. But also maybe gave them the scope to extend it. So we carved out the mountainside to get it to how we wanted it to be to build our bridge. This could be part of a structure for the town that will eventually be built below. But as I said, that creative dynamic is very much key. And that's where we stopped that lesson, but you could carry on, you could add to the environment there, or you could say, look, no, we've got that as a feature, we want to go back over here. And the next part of our topic, we'll use this world again. We'll move on from bridge building and we'll look at houses, or we'll use it to recreate a local world. So there's loads of different scope that you could do. You could build a model of the town you live in. You could reconstruct a historical area or monument. I've used it to reconstruct World War II trenches. There's just loads that you can do with it, whether it's history, geography, art, and so forth. But the only limit is people's willingness to get involved and what you show them to do in the first place, and then the time they have to experiment. But it doesn't have to be huge, because there's a huge community around this. The Minecraft education community are the most enthusiastic people I've ever come across. If you pop a question to them, they'll be back to you in no time at all. And you'll really get a video, or you'll get a link to a tutorial, and you'll find out how to do something. Spoke earlier about where you imported your worlds. That was there. If you wanted to join a world, that's where you put those codes in that I showed you when I mimicked hosting a world. So you type in the same code that you're given, press confirm, and then providing you're in the same version of Minecraft, same network, you will end up all in the same room. So you can get a whole class together, or you can get small groups together, or you can keep them all on their own, working in their own little world. It's up to you how you organize it. So that's a bit of an introduction to Minecraft Education Edition. It's got a huge amount of scope, but it's just, as with all of the things we've shown you, just have a play around with it. I'd say start with either the tutorial or blocks of grass and start building and using that inventory and playing around. Get used to things like the camera and the book and quill, because they're good things to introduce pupils to make them independent, capturing and evidencing their own learning or their own progress. And it will also make it easier for you as a teacher. I'm going to jump back across and just finish off today with the slides from our session and make sure that we are knowing where we're all going next and what's going to happen. One of the things that we hoped to get sorted that we haven't been able to secure is that the school that we had to deliver the showcase event was unfortunately unable to host it, and it was due to staffing issues with COVID. They had so many staff off they couldn't actually facilitate it. So what we had hoped to do on the 10th of May, we haven't. We are trying to find another host school for that, and we're desperately trying to get it arranged before the MIE applications. But we'll update you as soon as we can secure someone to deliver that session. Today was the Minecraft Education Edition, and on the 14th of June, shortly after we return from half term, what we will do is we will have a expedition session and an application session. And what that will do is it will go through just how to structure your application. And it's also an opportunity for you to do some expedition exercises, which are designed by us to give you even more evidence. If you haven't had a go in school, you can have a go at doing whichever element it is. And I will hang around during that session for you to go and experiment and come back and ask me questions. So that's the 14th of June. And there will be another application workshop, and I'll bring it forwards. I originally put it on the 7th of July, but now that date has been published, I will try and move it forwards to a week earlier, where you can come in, you can share applications, you can ask questions, you can ask me to recap any areas that I didn't cover on the 14th of June, but we'll go through every single different bit of phase 1 and 2 and 3 and what to write in those sections, so that you've got the strongest possible application ready to submit it in July, so you have the best chance of becoming an MIEE. So also today we said that we would give you a code to make up for the fact that last time Microsoft had deactivated the old Microsoft Education Center. That code is on screen. It's slightly different to the way that you used to do it. So you go and log into Microsoft Learn. You then go to your account, and in the middle of the screen where I've got the orangey yellow circle, there is a redeem your code now link. When you press that, you'll get a pop-up box like you used to do by pressing the initials on the old Microsoft Education Center. And then the code that's in our blue box in the top right-hand corner of the slide I'm sharing with you is one that you can redeem and then paste in, and you can get your MIE qualification. If your MIE status hasn't transferred from the Microsoft Education Center, we're assured that it will be done by the time that your MIE applications are reviewed, but this code will also help you to get a new one. I've just popped that in the chat there for you. So that will only work in Microsoft Learn. That code will not work in the old Microsoft Education Center, which I know is a bit confusing, but I'm hoping they're going to kill or deactivate the Microsoft Education Center, so we just have Learn moving forwards. And I think it'll be less confusing for everyone concerned and far, far easier to use. If you wanted to know about putting in your application and you want to go ahead with that, all you need to do is search for the application portal. I will also just stick that into our chat if you are really keen. Remember, if you do submit your final application, we can't go back and edit it or change it. So you can go in and register and you can start it, but I would urge you not to finish it until we've gone through our application sessions. From me today, I haven't got anything else to show you because I appreciate the Minecraft Education Edition is quite a lot to take on board anyway. So really, it's keep following everybody on Microsoft Social and also the Turn It On Social. I'll pop everything in the channel after this session, but it's just if you've got any questions, if you're listening to the recording, I'm going to stop the recording now. It's nice to have you with us and we'll see you on the next dates. But if you are here, you're more than welcome to ask